What's up, everybody? Welcome to Brandon's Face. It's the podcast about a playlist. I'm Jonathan Beardsley.
And I am Brandon May.
We got some music news to talk about this week. I think the biggest headline being that Oasis is finally reuniting for a string of shows across the UK. What are your thoughts on this?
I think I will believe it when it happens, although I believe one of them is going through a divorce. So I think they're all on the same page that, man, we really need that money.
Like you all believe it when it happens, but I feel like this will happen. Like you said, that they need the money more than anything else. There's that very famous video of Liam Gallagher making his own cup of coffee, talking about back in the 90s, I would have had
four guys,
four fuckers doing it. This dumb motherfucker making that, this guy making that. Yeah, no, they definitely want the money. It's funny because when the news came out, I immediately turned to my wife and I was like, you know what this means for Coachella, right? And they must have been seeing all of those headlines about Glastonbury and Coachella because I believe they have been quick to dispel any festival appearances. That doesn't mean they won't happen. It just means they're trying to sell the tickets to the shows that they have booked already. But what do you think? Do you think they're in the running for Glastonbury or Coachella next year?
I think maybe 2026 for Coachella. It's possible for Glastonbury next year, but I really don't think that they would play Coachella before they played Glastonbury. That would be wild to me if that actually happened. I would find Paul Tollett and give him a gigantic high five if he made that happen. Not that I'm like a giant Oasis fan. I like the hits, you know.
Sure.
I'm a bigger Blur fan, but yeah,
both Blur on the other main stage at the same time.
Well, Blur had a very terrible turnout this year at Coachella, so I don't think they're going to be booking Blur again. At least that late at night, you know. So
yeah, that was I kind of forgot about the mess that was Blur at Coachella 2024. But you are right. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I feel like as the shows go on, there'll be less of a headline, but those first few are going to be interesting to watch. Probably more for the between song banter, if any, you know?
Yeah, I think I think that's what they're known for now, and that's awesome. Good for them.
Yeah, I agree. Next bit of music news. You just told me about this. So Linkin Park had a website, or had a countdown on their website that ended today, and then just started negatively counting down or counting back up. What happened here?
Counting back up. So okay. I'm not on the gram. So sure. I got information that Linkin Park had put something on their Instagram or something to that effect that some news was coming, or maybe everybody just assumed that, right? You go to linkinpark.com. It was a countdown, and the countdown ended today. I think this morning at like 9 a.m. Pacific time, where I'm at, and it ended today. It counted down to this moment, and then it started counting up. There was a lot of fun rumors, maybe a new tour, maybe with a new singer. Mm-hmm. There have been a lot of rumors about who that singer is going to be. There has been rumors about a female vocalist, which is awesome. I heard a Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm rumor, and then the other day, Sum 41 posted that they were going to also have an announcement, or Derek, their vocalist, was going to have an announcement today. And so everybody obviously took that and we're like, oh my God, he's going to be the lead singer of Linkin Park. And there's a little bit of credence to that, right? Like I think Derek and Mike Shinoda have done a few live things together where they cover some Linkin Park songs, which is, great and fine. And it would make sense, I guess, in that aspect if Derek could hit the register that Chester does or did. But yeah, nothing happened so far. Everybody is just wildly speculating. I have no idea. What do you think?
I mean, thinking about it, it's okay. So Meteora's 20th anniversary was last year, and we got a 20th anniversary of that. So we can rule out Meteora. Yep. Hybrid Theory had its 20th anniversary. I think this is going to be its 25th anniversary this year. So we can't really rule out it being a Hybrid Theory anniversary. But I feel like I think we already got a Hybrid Theory 20th as well, didn't we? Yeah, we did back in 2020. So yeah, I think if we're ruling out vinyl re-releases and anniversaries, then yeah, it's got to be a tour or a new official vocalist for the group. Chester is not somebody you can just replace. I think that
Obviously not.
Any of their fans know this. Anybody that's ever heard those early albums knows that's a one-of-a-kind talent, especially as it relates to fitting in this band. But there are artists out there that I would be very much interested in hearing fill those shoes. You mentioned a few, Lizzie Hale, etc. Is there anybody you would just personally like to see, even if it doesn't make sense?
I don't know, man. I actually think that Lizzie Hale would be like a really good one.
Yeah.
What's her name from Spirit Box?
Ooh, great pick. Yes, I don't know her name either, but she has the sing scream range down to pull that off. I think if you're going female, the In This Moment vocalist would probably be interesting in that role.
That'd be fun.
I'm going to broaden things here. Cove Reber. I think Cove could do it, honestly.
Cove should just fill in for every vocalist ever.
I was going to
point,
say,
man.
like, do you want to typecast yourself as the fill-in vocalist? No, but I think he's made a great career off doing so, and I would happily listen to Linkin Park with Cove, honestly.
That's what I was just going to say. Do you want to typecast yourself? Do you want to make money being everybody's fill-in vocalist? The answer to that is obviously yes.
I mean, he's got to go in the Hall of Fame as the greatest fill-in vocalist in scene history already.
Right, exactly. There are plenty. We actually did get some more Chester content these last couple of years. I think we talked about the band a little bit. It was, I forget the band's name all of a sudden, but the band he was in prior to Linkin Park, which
not Alter Bridge, but the one he was in before.
Exactly. It is Gray Days.
That's right.
The one we covered. We covered a handful of songs from them on the podcast, and we got some new Chester vocals, which are at least
Weird
content.
Sentence. Yeah.
But there's no one that could ever really replace him. You're absolutely right, and he really did. He really did help define an entire generation with his voice, and I hope that anybody who steps in to fill his shoes realizes and respects how gigantic those shoes are, if that even is the case. But I mean, that's where all the speculation is, you know?
We'll know when the countdown reaches its climax, I guess. I don't know.
I have no idea what the fuck is happening.
Point. Wouldn't it be funny if they had no idea what the fuck that was? That was just something some troll put on their website. That would be great.
Yeah, our bad guys.
One more bit of music news is the American Football House is now on Airbnb. Is this a good thing or a bad thing in your mind?
So, emo comes from punk.
Sure.
Capitalizing on punk is the least punk thing one could do.
Right.
So it is objectively a bad thing.
Yes, but reality factored in is that house cost money to buy, which they just bought a house. As somebody that's not a homeowner talking to somebody that is a homeowner, we both know the sides of the spectrum. I think they have to keep making payments on this thing, and they're not going to be using it throughout the year. I think it's a good way to do that, but I do agree that the overall profiting off of it is kind of odd at this point.
I think it's a great way to maximize your capital investment. However, I think they could do a donations-based emo museum and have the history of emo and have Ian MacKaye come out every year or something to do a guided tour of the history through emo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, and people would donate with even without a suggested dollar amount, or even a suggested dollar amount, $5. I mean, yeah, people would be in the house all the time or whatever, but I think that it would probably end up paying for the house and not be capitalistic. You know what I mean?
I'm bad with money, so I'm probably not the one to even shoot on this. I would love to see the house. I would not want to pay to stay in it. I don't really have great experiences with Airbnbs. I don't know about you, but I don't really like the whole concept very much.
Even have an Airbnb account.
That's
sir.
Good. Keep it that way, man. It's interesting. I'm trying to think if there's any other album cover houses that could have this same effect down the road. The only one that was coming to mind was like the brand new one, but I don't think that's happening for reasons outside of music. But
the devil and God really is inside of that house, man.
yeah, but I mean that is another, like, I'd say iconic album cover house. It'll be interesting to see if this case ever resurfaces in another way. I'm sure it will.
Even the I forget like what exactly it is, but there's like a commercial building that's super colorful on like the Sunny Day Real Estate album.
Mm-hmm.
That would be interesting.
Yeah,
but yeah.
The Doors had that. I can't even remember, what is it, L.A. Woman? I think the building on the cover of that. It's interesting to see. I like when we're able to preserve history. If people staying the night in these places is what it takes to kind of preserve some of them, I guess I'm for it. All right.
I would stay the night in the house in Iowa that Slipknot had all their fans destroy for the Duality video.
Yeah, probably not much to stay in anymore, but that would be pretty awesome.
I mean, yeah, that would be the entire point. Airbnb that one out, guys.
Yeah, once somebody can build a house on the Joshua Tree site where they took that damn photo for the Joshua Tree cover, it's over, man. All the boomers are going out to that Airbnb.
Don't put that idea in people from LA's head, bro.
All right, man. We got a few album announcements this week. Big ones, too. Tommy Richmond finally announced his debut album will be dropping September 27th. I'm excited for that one.
Sick.
The Smile announced their second album of 2024. Cutouts will be dropping October 4th. They put out 2 new songs today. We'll talk about those ones next week. Don't say sick or not sick. Just table your thoughts for now, Brandon. Caribou also announced an album coming out October 4th. Honey, I'm sure you're fucking stoked for that. And one I have been just dying on for like 2 years now. Flow have finally announced their debut album. Access All Areas is coming out November 15th. So I think all 4 of those should be good. All album announcements I was kind of expecting, but happy to have confirmed.
Second Smile album in a year. Didn't Radiohead do that?
I think if you're
I think there was like 8 months in between an album. I think they might have been in 2 different years, but I think it was within the 12 months.
I'm guessing that's pre-OK. Those like Amnesiac or something like that. The Bends. Maybe if you go back that far. Like, I feel like I used to confuse In Rainbows 1 and 2, but they released disc 2 like years after disc 1 on an anniversary. But when you look at it on streaming, it looks like 2 albums kind of released at the same time. So I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty excited. I'm already excited to hear your thoughts on the new songs. So we'll get into that when it's time. Any other music news before we start this week?
That's it, man. We got a lot of good music to go over.
Let's kick it off with this new one from Cascade and Anissa, Tears Don't Fall. You a fan?
Yes and no. The song is fine. It's very John Summit, and it's lacking a signature Cascade bass line.
You mean John Summit is very Cascade, but yes, I agree. It sounds like...
No. I actually think that this Cascade song sounds like a John Summit song who's trying to sound like old Cascade. It's come full circle, bro.
The trends are chasing the artists now? No. All right, yeah, I agree with you. It's fine. It sounds like classic Cascade. It was nice to start the playlist off on a somewhat reliable sound. Got a new one from...
Fun to hear new Cascade.
Yes, as always, and wouldn't be mad if it's leading towards a new album. I think that it's very much time for that to happen, although not going to get my hopes up. Probably a Redux again.
We'll see.
All right, Recondite, new song Carrot. Love this one. The drums on it are like fucking cacophonous and awesome. What were your thoughts on it?
This is just a gleaming example of why I love Recondite's music so much. It's minimal, but it has just enough strings and percussion to add flair and mystery.
Yeah.
My God, man, this is good shit.
Really, really good. New one from Alex Perez, R2R. This one didn't immediately burn itself into my soul forever like False Promises did, but I still really, really liked it. What about you?
I actually think this one's another banger. It's not quite as good as False Promises is, but I think he really killed it on this one.
I agree. I like hearing more from him, definitely. Ooh, one I've been very excited to talk about. New one from Yeji Boo Boo. I don't know what to say about this song other than I love everything about it. So much so that I can't decide between it and the new Gallant song for my song of the week. So I'm going to already say both
Spoilers.
are. Dude, John liked the new Gallant song. Big surprise. Yeah, I've seen this artist's name before, like on Pitchfork year-end lists and stuff. Never really dove in until now. Haven't listened to anything beyond this yet, but I'm already considering myself a fan. I saw she just did a Boiler Room set, and I was actually listening to that right before recording. Very, very good stuff. What did you think of this? Is this your starting point with Yeji as well?
Yeah, never heard Yeji before, seen the name like you. I love the production on this one, like a lot.
Yeah.
The vocals were a little grating the first time I heard it, but they did end up becoming less grating the more I listened to it. So the instrumentals though and the production on this are immaculate, like really good.
It's funny, the way you feel about that song is the exact way I feel about the next one, which is the new Doechii song Boom Bap. Probably my least favorite of the tracks we've heard. I don't need to hear her blow raspberries that many times in my ears, but I love the moments on here where she's actually rapping, and I have no doubt her new album dropping this week is going to be phenomenal. What'd you think of this one?
So I actually looked at this, I think maybe a little bit of a different way.
What's that?
She's making fun of all of the different types of flows she does on this one, just to kind of prove that she can do them, you know?
Yeah.
And I mad respect to Doechii for that, man. I liked this song. I didn't like the song, but I like the song for it's about the message,
yes.
John.
I like the message as well. I will agree with you there. The aforementioned new Gallant song, Crimes of Compassion. Like I said, this one's tied for my song of the week. Big surprise, but it's not just because I'm a fanboy. It is because it's insane how great this is, man. He hits some of those big notes his older fans love him for while still exploring more of this alternative indie sound. It's fucking great, man. What'd you think of it?
Gallant's voice over sultry guitars never gets old, man. This song is incredible. The fuzz, the atmosphere, his vocals, the building, the releases, just all of it works so well.
Is this your favorite of the three we've heard, Cold Star and Fly on the Wall?
I could not tell you right now because I've loved all three of them. So yeah, but I really did come back to this song quite a few times this week.
The way the hook on this one explodes in the middle and then gets brought back at the end, and then even when he does it twice at the end, it doesn't feel like enough. You feel like you still want him to just keep going and going. Really, really good shit. I would happily take an extended version of this if he's offering. All right, let's get into the full-on rock realm of things. Rock starts with Gallant. Don't get it twisted. All right, two new songs from Blink-182, All in My Yed and No Fun. These are the first of 8 new songs we're going to be getting as part of the One More Time Deluxe Edition. They're good. I think if you like this era of Blink, you'll enjoy these. What'd you think?
So All in My Yed.
Yeah.
Pardon
say it
me,
right.
is just a bunch of callbacks to their old music, but it's catchy as hell, undoubtedly. Yeah. No Fun is an interesting song for Blink-182 to sing with one of them married to a Kardashian, but respect. Tom sounds terrible on this song, though, for some reason. It sounds like he's trying to do his accent, but not actually. It sounds like someone else trying to do Tom's accent.
I feel like that's kind of a thing with all of the Blink guys, maybe outside of because Travis just always sounds like Travis. There's times I feel like Mark's trying to sound like old Mark too. It's the problem with doing a band like this many years on, but it's a problem I accept we're going to have as a result of just keeping them around, you know? I didn't hate these though. I'm interested to hear the rest of them for sure. All right, 2 new songs from State Champs. We got Silver Cloud and Too Late to Say. Definitely leaning more on the pop realm of things than the punk realm of things, but I think it works for where they're at in their sound now. Both songs are solid. I think I'm a little more partial to Too Late to Say, actually. New album is going to be self-titled, and it drops November 8th. What are your thoughts on it?
Love a double single drop from State Champs. Yeah, the hook on Silver Cloud is so good. Too Late to Say is also fantastic. I think I like Silver Cloud a little better, though.
I could see that. I'm noticing a little of that, it's not country, but it's a little of that, Bill Murray sound in this, pop punk wave we got going on right now. Interesting to monitor.
They're a little bit country. They're a little bit pop punk.
They're a little bit rock and roll. Yeah, I get it. I like it, though. I don't hate it. All right, 2 new songs from Stateside, 30 Mile Stretch and Since Last Season. Tell me why I knew this was a Pure Noise band before I even saw the label attached, man. Love how consistent that label has been over the years. Both of these songs were good. 30 Mile Stretch is solid, but Since Last Season is really, really good stuff. I don't know if we've covered them before, but I liked it. What'd you think of these?
I had never heard of Stateside before. I heard both of these songs, and I saw on Bandcamp that Pure Noise had put out a double single of pop punk, and I just knew we had to do a triple feature of double singles on the playlist this week, John.
Yeah.
Both of these tracks are great.
Triple feature of double singles is maybe a first for us. I liked it.
I think it is.
It was fun.
There's like the slight screamy and like the fantastic melodies. They all work together. And yes, it has that signature Pure Noise mixing. I don't even know what the sound is that you can just tell it's A, going to be a banger, and B, probably from Pure Noise.
Just vibes, bro. Just pure vibes.
Just pure vibes.
All right, man. New one from the number 12, Looks Like You. Eyes on the Fireworks is the name of the track. Looking at their Spotify, they have not been gone as long as I thought. I haven't heard this band since I was in like high school, but it looks like they were active as recently as 2019. Either way, really great to hear them again. Anthemic alt rock with like a punk twist. What's not to like? I hope this is leading towards an album. What about you?
Yeah, I did the same exact thing you did, which was wait. When was the last time they released music? Yeah. And turns out it was 2019, so maybe we're just out of the loop, which is always fun to look, man. This track is good, but I was hoping for much more of like the older sound that I loved from them in the early 2000s. Yeah. You know, that wild and dissonant, almost like feral post-hardcore stuff. That's not this, but this is a good song.
Yeah, we get a little softer as we get older, man. Happens to all of us. Maybe not Nile. We'll talk about that later, though. All right, so we got new one from Silverstein, Skin and Bones. Give me your thoughts on it.
So, welcome to my song of the week, John. It's worth going over that this song was actually written about the tragic murder of Shane's ex-girlfriend. What a massive tribute, man. It's the reason he included that spoken word quote of Samwise from Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. Other than like the devastating reason this song was written, this song is so fucking good, dude. Like, I'm hoping it's a new album. Apparently, they've been recording stuff in Joshua Tree, which is a bummer because it's like right there. So maybe they're already gone. But I just the way the chorus is hit after Shane's incredible harsh vocals and that bridge, the spoken word moment, the breakdown, this band just touches my soul, bro.
They always have, man. Yeah, I had a feeling this was going to be high up on your list. I love the screams, love the catchy hook, that little hammer-on riff. I will say, without the context of knowing what it was, the bridge reads a little as cheese, but I think even that aside, I enjoyed this song. I always prefer when they go like a little heavier on the verses and leave the chorus to be the catchy part. I think that's really when their formula works best, and they accomplished it here. That's fucking terrible, though, man. I had no idea that's what this song was about. That's really sad.
I know.
All right, new one from Amyl and the Sniffers, Chewing Gum. I was wondering when we would hear from them again. We got a new album announcement to go along with this new song, too. Their album, Cartoon Darkness, drops October 25th, and we'll include the last 2 songs we heard a while back as well as this one. I'm excited to hear how their combination of like bar rock meets punk rock will play out over the course of a full album, but I like where we're at so far. This was a really good song. What'd you think?
A fantastic song. I think that Amyl and the Sniffers are gaining a lot of popularity in the States. Apparently they've been big in Australia because that's where they're from. No doubt their music's going to be good. They're from Australia. I've been loving the music that they've been putting out these last few years, and the last couple singles they put out have been great. So I'm excited to hear an album. Have you ever watched her on stage? Like watched a fan recorded live show?
I have not.
Yeah, go do that. Okay. I'm gonna leave one in the show notes. She's fucking crazy. I love her.
Love that. Yeah, I assumed as much just based on the way they sound and the way they carry themselves musically. I will definitely check that out. New one from Alien Nose Job, Trapped in Time. Talk to me about this one.
Just some shitty punk rock I found. You know I love this raw sound. I needed to share it. It's amazing.
Same notes. Just some straight up fun riffy Aussie rock, man. Good shit. Yep. New one from Pixies, Oyster Beds. You a fan of this one?
There's no other way to say this, John. This song fucking rips.
Yeah,
That bass line is wild. I think the song is very good.
I do too. Big surprise. The Pixies still sound great. How do they only have 9 million monthly listeners, though? This, like, blows my mind. At least 100 million trillion kids have had the Surfer Rosa poster in their dorm room at some point in time. So the math isn't mathing on how many people listen to them, but quality as always in terms of the release.
I think it's funny. I've had this thought about bands that were like Smashing Pumpkins. I don't know how many monthly listeners they have. It's probably a little bit more than Pixies, but I think it's because they all have the CDs, bro. They're all still in our cars.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We built those to last forever, and they will. As long as you don't scratch that little piece, you know?
Exactly.
All right. Pure Reason Revolution is the artist on this next one. The song's called Betrayal. What'd you think of this one?
So this is some prog rock from a label that's released quite a lot of prog music, Inside Out Records. They release a lot of music in general. Specifically this year we've covered at least one Caligula's Horse's new album.
Yep.
How do you say that in the possessive? And I vibed with this one, especially when it dropped. So here it is. I wanted to share it with you. What'd you think?
Well, thank you for sharing it. It's funny because, like, at first I kind of did like my usual like eye roll, this isn't my cup of tea thing, but by the end of the first listen it won me over. It is so well written and put together from start to finish. It's impossible not to give it a confirmed thumbs up for sure.
Hey, I'm glad you liked it. I was on the fence about whether or not you were gonna. I was like, he's either gonna love it or hate it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, you lucked out, man. New one from Chat Pile, Mask, another banger from the guys in Chat Pile. I think I like this one a little more than I Am Dog Now. Something about the way the guitars sound, his vocal delivery on this one, it's just doing it for me. What about you though?
I just want to say that it was extremely difficult to go over like what my favorite song. Like I could easily pick 7 songs of the week this week.
This one,
this song
too?
has and I think the next one would be. But this is such a sick groove to it, dude. All accentuated by he goes by Raygun. His real name's Randy. His vocals though really do, like you said, really bring out the best in this song. The album is shaping up to be pretty fucking good. We've only had 2 singles.
Yeah, man, I'm pretty excited to hear it in full. I think that's like October-ish, so still got a little while. New one from Vomit Forth, Negative Penance is the name of this one. Wow. Just wow on this one, dude. It is perfect. That's all I have to say.
No notes.
Yeah, it's a fucking ripper start to finish. This is great. Are we getting a new Vomit Forth album?
I fucking hope so.
Yeah, I loved this one, man. All right, next and the last single we're talking about this week is Ingurgitating Oblivion. It's The Barren Earth Part 2. We talked about Part 1, I think, last episode. What are your thoughts on Part 2?
Part 2 is here.
Yeah.
What a fucking masterpiece, bro. This is just dissonant death metal done exactly the way it's like. You hear the word dissonant death metal and you're like, that doesn't make sense. And then you listen to this and you're like, yeah, nope, that makes sense. It is same as Part 1. It's the same notes, jazzy, groovy, almost like oddly catching for how absolutely jarring it is.
Yeah.
This is wild.
Yeah. Bro. We were pretty blown away by Part 1, but dude, holy shit. They went even harder with Part 2. It fucking rips, dude. This is the one you texted me earlier this week, right? Just a picture of you listening to it. I was like, yeah.
Yep.
Good shit.
That one part, like 3 minutes in, where like the saxophones come in and you're like, what the fuck is happening?
Yep. Great shit. We have a few EPs to talk about this week. I feel like it's been a while since we've had this many EPs. First up, new one from Orbital Gate. Nebulous Wavering Illumination is the name of this one. I really enjoyed their last album, so I was happy to see another project of theirs pop up so soon. It's a little more straightforward in terms of genre. Still brutal, still extreme, still slam. But with the exception of that last song, that sample to open it up, it feels like it has a little less like personality to it. It's still fucking great. Preemptory Planetary Repossession fucking rips. But I did find myself missing the band that threw random shit like Come Is My Favorite Breakfast, Lunch, and Dinner at the start of Gridlock, or the random post-punk verse in Sludgegate. I still enjoyed this project quite a bit. I just missed the dumb shit a little bit. Astral Scavenger is one of my favorite metal albums to come out this year, though, so I shouldn't compare every new album to it, even if it is by the same band. So I'm going to give this project a thumbs up overall. What about you?
Yeah, I'm number one. I'm blown away that I was like, okay, I need to figure out what this band is because they're number one prolific this year, releasing an EP and an album.
Yeah,
and number two, it's all fucking great. Apparently, one dude calls himself a trans slammer or something like that. It's
okay.
it's so good. Yeah, this dude must be busy. Just incredibly brutal. Goes to show that when someone has an ear, they have an ear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I did not know this was a one guy project. I know we saw like a lot of collaborators on the last one. I just felt like that was probably like the decision for that, but it makes a lot more sense now. Yeah, holy shit. This might be my favorite of the one man projects in this realm we cover, dude. It's really good.
Right.
All right, a few EDM releases in terms of EPs to talk about. How do you pronounce this next artist? Mirn? Mern? Sure, we're going to say Mern. The album is called The Four Stages of the EP. It's great. I will take 20 minutes of this Never Happened music any day of the week. Beautiful synth tones as to be expected on here. What'd you think of these?
Yeah, just gorgeous soundscapes on this one, John. We've covered quite a bit of This Never Happened music this year, and every single release has been insanely well produced. And this is honestly one of the better produced, like one of the better mixed and mastered releases. Fantastic melodic house that's just presented in such a beautiful way. It's impossible to dislike this, in my opinion. Like, so, yeah, who could listen to this and be like, "Nah, this is garbage"?
Yeah.
You can't. Like, I understand if somebody listens to Orbital Gate and they're like, "The same for me," but like for me, this seems impossible to dislike. It's very, very good music.
Yeah, I didn't even see the label the first time I hit play, but halfway through One Sunrise at a Time, I was like, oh, it's a This Never Happened release. I already know it. I feel like they don't release EPs as frequently as it seems like. Since we cover them all, it seems a little more than it is. I've missed hearing them. I like it whenever they circle back around.
I've been a little bit pickier with what I add on from that label, only because we do cover so much of it, and it's impossible to keep up with how much they release. But this was fun to get a full EP instead of just a couple singles. You know?
We could do a whole other pod of just This Never Happened, fucking Afterlife. Right. Yeah, there's a lot of these labels that we could dive further into. All right,
Lane 8, come on the show, man.
Please. New one from Pianetti Sentici. This is a unique release, man. I like the progression, both within each song and over the course of the full EP from song to song. His weird bag of whimsical sounds are always fun to hear incorporated. It's another solid release from him, man. What'd you think of it?
Same. I just find it a little ironic that Pianetti Sentici is Italian for synthetic planet, but all of the music he makes sounds so organic to me. This whole EP is dark as hell. I absolutely, like you said, love the progression on these tracks. The percussion choices are really unique. They're done extremely well. Step Up Plane is just insane. Once those drums just start fucking banging and you're like, oh my God, like it's really neat.
Fucking great. Yeah, I really like Step Up Plane too. All right, we got one more EP to talk about this week. It's from a few artists on Hypnus Records. The EP is called Infra. What are your thoughts on it?
Yes, this is a full moon release, as is tradition for Hypnus Records. This is actually on Hypnus Records. It's labeled Hypnus Records in Spotify, but it's actually released in Europe on AD Records, which is like a subset of them. That doesn't matter. But dear God, John. Deep building grooves, hypnotic drum beats, immaculate synth work, just fantastic use of stereo in a couple of these songs to incorporate some like really fleeting elements of psychedelia. This EP, or rather this collection from Hypnus, is insane, man. Every track has its own place, of course, but the opener, Ignis, is fucking insane, dude. The drums on this, actually, I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, all four of these tracks hit. Ignis is great, but the Sea of Names is my favorite of the bunch, man. So fucking good. Yeah, dude, all of these have a slightly different feel to them, but they all work really well. It's another classic Hypnus release. All right, man, are
Yes,
you
sir.
ready to move on to the albums?
We've got quite a few of them.
Yeah, man. First up, we have this new one from Sabrina Carpenter, short and sweet. The first thing that hit my mind when listening to this is how Taylor adjacent it sounded. So I've been dying to know where this was going to land on your scale all week. So please dive in with your thoughts first.
This is indeed short and sweet. I'll be honest, I haven't ever listened to a full Sabrina Carpenter album before. So this is the first one. I know we covered, I think, one of her tracks last year on our 2023 pop playlist,
Mm-hmm.
but I never did go back. I've been listening to Espresso, both by choice and against my will, for the last few months,
Yeah.
it feels like. Everything about this album feels a little manufactured to me, though. Everything I see her in, I feel like she's a little bit of a robot, man, just soulless.
Yeah.
And I think that that translates into the music a little bit. All of that being said, though, the album itself is fine. It's clearly intentionally produced, which is to be expected for pop stars of her caliber. She's got a great voice, and it's on display here, as you can tell by the choice to have like quite a few more slower songs, like Dumb and Poetic, whose lyrics are actually fantastic, and Lie to Girls, even though this one features that ever popular breathy singing, I'm not a
Yeah.
fan of, and we've talked about many times on this podcast. There's a few bops, man, a few moments that left me scratching my head. I don't want to make anyone Juno. That seems weird.
I agree.
Has she ever done country stuff before? Do you know?
Not to this degree, no. Which is,
Got
I
it.
knew you were going to pick up on that. I didn't know you hadn't like heard her previous albums, but yes, this is, I would say, the most in that direction she's ever released something. I think really you can trace her country origins to the motherfucker and please, please, please. That's about where it started. So you're not missing anything.
Well, we've got Slim Pickens, which is, I mean, it's a decent track, but she's clearly teasing something more country adjacent in the future as
Yep.
long as country's popularity stays where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
All of that being said, man, all of these songs are just decent to me. There's nothing extraordinarily memorable for how marketed this album is.
Yep.
I mean, I've listened to Espresso both at by clicking on it and against my will for months. I couldn't even hum the melody, man. I literally, and I've listened to it probably over 2 dozen times, right? I couldn't even hum you the melody. I it was kind of shoved down our throats, and
Yeah.
I don't really see what all the hype was about. Maybe I'm missing it. It's a 5 for me. I didn't dislike this album. I just didn't particularly like it nor remember it. Death and Poetry is going to be my standout. I think that one had the best lyrical content to it, which is one of the main reasons why I'm drawn to Taylor Swift music.
You're not missing anything, man. This album is a 12 pack of ass as far as I'm concerned, dude. Not a single original idea is presented during the 36-minute runtime. I'm not a Sabrina hater either. I like her previous albums. I think she had a unique take on modern pop music, but this is derivative, bland, and boring. She's trying to be Taylor at times. She's trying to be Ariana at others, doing neither of them very well. I've never been a big fan of Jack Antonoff, as anybody who's ever listened to the show for 5 seconds could probably tell you. But I usually give credit where it's due in terms of production quality. But I think the 4 songs he did for this album are among the worst on it. I'm also just tired of non-country artists all moving in that direction. Beyonce, Post Malone, now Sabrina are all setting the trend by chasing it, or chasing what sells at least, like you said. She already has one of the biggest songs of the decade with Espresso and had very little incentive to try and make another hit of its kind. I wouldn't be surprised if this album was unplanned when Espresso came out and her label just made her capitalize on it and put an album together based on just the success of that song. That happens quite often. That's just me speculating, though. It definitely sounds phoned in to me as somebody that's listened to her music before. Like the Post Malone album, I'm aware that none of her core fan base will care about this and will eat this up regardless. It just did not do it for me, man. I'm giving it a 4. I don't know what the fucking standout is, dude. Espresso is probably like the most roundedly well produced and mixed song, but I don't think it's the best song on here. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I've just always felt we watched her SNL performance, and everything just seems so choreographed, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and also like it's weird for like, I don't feel like I'm in her demographic anymore, even as somebody that just enjoys mainstream pop music, because like her whole image since, you know, post Girl Meets World is like this Lolita-esque figure in pop that, like, if you've ever heard any of the nonsense like ad-lib things she does live, they're just like, I'm a small baby, I like big penises, and it's just like, it's getting fucking weird as somebody that, like, we saw you on TV as a kid, and now it's just like, I don't know, man. I get that she's like a fucking adult woman now, but it's still just, the whole project is very weird in a way that I can't really explain, but it rubs me wrong as like a 37-year-old man for some reason.
No, I think you are correct. I don't think that you are her target demographic, so neither am I.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that, but we will continue to monitor the situation. All right, we got a new album from Mura Masa. Curve 1 is the name of this. This is his first album since going independent, and I think it's his best to date. I think the less is more approach with features makes it a more cohesive experience than his last couple albums, even if it doesn't have the same highs. Those are still great, but I like just how this one flows and feels from song to song. It almost moves along kind of like a Boiler Room set. We've got a few albums this year that feel like that to me. That Wave Dash project, the Salute project, even that Isonoc project a little bit. They aren't mixed in the way that they would be live, but the sequencing is so tight that it almost feels like it. I love how patient this album is, too. The songs go on as long as they need to without trying to pander to kids with TikTok brain attention spans. There's a few moments on it that I didn't enjoy as much as others, but overall, I think it works, man. Solid 7 for me. My standout is that 10-minute version of Fly that he ends the album with. Holy shit. That is great. What do you think of this one?
So I went into this album with pretty high hopes. I think we got a couple of singles for this, and I liked them from my recollection. And I do like quite a few parts and quite a few moments of this album. Take the opening track, for instance. I love the production, but the chopped up vocal samples that don't really ever seem to coincide with each other just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The instrumentals on this one, though, incredible. I feel like that sums up my thought like throughout the whole album, except on tracks where there are features, which is kind of the opposite of your take here. We Are Making Out, which features Yule, Drugs, which features Daniela Lalita, or the very great extended mix of Fly with Cherish. It feels like he thrives on collaborations with vocalists, at least for my ear. Yule just crushes her part on We Are Making Out, and the entire track flows together extremely well. But even tracks like Giddy Up are made worse with like the repetitious vocal chops. I don't know, man. Like half of them would be so cool. They just become grating after the first minute or so. And it's kind of felt like a trudge to get through. Like every song kind of started really awesome for me. And then it's like, okay, this again. There are a couple of exceptions. Sexy and Shuff, which both feature progressive vocals, even though they're samples. But the instrumentals are what kept me coming back to this project all week. There's absolutely fantastic production styles and dance music styles that only people from small islands off the coast of the UK can make. Very interesting sounds, engaging percussions, really good and like clearly painstaking drum placements throughout the whole thing. I did like this more than I didn't, but the parts that I didn't are going to remain. So it's a 6 out of 10 for me. Obviously, the extended mix of Fly is fucking crazy, so that's going to be my standout, sir.
Hey, that is fair. That extended mix actually came out back when the original did. I just forgot to add that version instead, so I'm glad we both have finally gotten to hear this extended mix. It kind of makes the album, for sure. But I do agree with some of your points. All right, new album from Fontaines D.C, Romance. My man, I really like this album. I had a good time whenever it came on this week. We talked about Starburster back when it dropped as a single. It threw me off a little bit because it was a little more like post-punk and a little less Britpop than Skinty Fia was. But that song has grown on me so much. I love the weird little breaths he does in the hook. I like the stupid like talk rap style. I think that works really well for his voice. There's not a lot else on the album that's like it, but that only makes that song feel more special. I think the back half of this album maybe loses a little bit of steam in terms of like the overall quality, but opening the album with fucking Romance, Starburster, and Here's the Thing into Desire is like going to be very hard to overcome. So it's a little top heavy in that regard, but that doesn't really take away from the experience for me. I got this one at an easy 7. My standout is Starburster. What'd you think of this new one from Fontaines D.C?
Yeah, man, Starburster is one of those growers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, here we go. It's another Fontaines DC release. I became a fan of theirs during the Hero's Death era and have maintained my fandom ever since. Every time they drop something, it's always more imaginative, a little bit more mature than their last release. And I thought that when we heard the news about Skinty I just knew in my heart that they were going to be able to improve upon A Hero's Death. But I was pretty skeptical that they were going to be able to make something on par with Skinty, which we both enjoyed. I think I enjoyed it a little more than you did. I don't think they made a better album, but I do think it's at least on par. It's got a lot of different ideas, like you said, the rappy verses in Starburster, and those breaths, I guess, are. They talked about it in an interview. I guess those gasps are supposed to be reflective of a panic attack that they had on a subway, or one of the band members did. There are like some chimes and like other really interesting instruments that we hear throughout this album. The synths are a really nice touch as well. And Desire is just this track that just builds and builds and builds into like a gorgeous crescendo, man. The track Bug has this classic Fontaine sound. In the modern world has this massive sound that just feels like it's got layers upon layers of distortion, but still clear. Houseness is the Whatness, which is a completely nonsensical song title, is a slower track that seems like delirious, but man, the star of the show here is Death Kink, which is just a fuzzy, frenetic, and yet controlled, pure post-punk song that has some of the best lyrics on the record regarding change, uncertainty in relationships, and of course the instant recognizability of humans and like humans in pain. Great song. Album ends with Favorite, which I think caps off the album nicely, just kind of gently places you on a cloud of melody to end the experience. I enjoyed this one. Like I said earlier, its quality is for sure on par with Skinty. However, I don't personally think I connected with Romance as much as I have with their other albums. Not to say, of course, I didn't, just not as much. It's somewhere between a 7 and an 8 for me. I think Death Kink is going to be my standout on this, although Starburster is really growing on me. Every time I listened to it, I was just getting it, you know?
I mean, those are my two favorites, too. Death Kink's great. Yeah, that's like my exception in the back half where it feels like it's losing steam. Death Kink fucking rocks. Glad you enjoyed this one too, man. Really, really good. I disagree though. I think it's a little better than Skinty.
That's okay. What's funny is I went back and listened to our reviews of Skinty.
Yeah.
I believe it's on episode 10, and you didn't like the post-punk-ish moments on that record as much as I did, and I'm a gigantic post-punk fan. This has less post-punk, so I think you like this one more than I like it.
But oddly enough, the post-punk songs on it are my favorite songs, so it's very confusing. Yeah, nothing makes sense. Welcome to Brandon's Face. All right.
Welcome to Brandon's Face and Irish artists.
All right, man. New Magdalena Bay album, Imaginal disc, is finally out. To the surprise of no one at all, this is my album of the week. It was not a given going in, though. I really liked the singles, but I was having trouble imagining how they would all come together on the album. After hearing it in full, I don't know how you can be anything other than impressed by what they accomplished on here. It's still the like pre-millennium coded pop that they've been putting out for the past few years, but they've expanded that sound to like the size of the fucking universe on here. They let the music build and fluster and take over in spots that their previous projects didn't, and I think that expanded experimentation with sound and structure really pays off in the end. There's still a narrative to follow and tailored aesthetics to help flesh out the vision behind this project, but it's the music that solidifies it as another classic. It is the complete opposite of a sophomore slump. It's one of the most exciting acts in synth pop today, making an album we're going to look back on years later as just another example of how great they really are. It's between an 8 and a 9 for me. My standout is Image, but I really like Killing Time too. What about you, man? What are your feelings on this one?
Mag Bay Day, my guy.
Yes, sir.
You and I were both extremely enamored with Mercurial World when it dropped, and we both
Still
kind of
am.
still are.
Yep.
Yeah, they've cemented themselves as a band who can do extremely interesting things with melody and songwriting, and that's exactly what they did here with Imaginal Disc. Like, I expected melody, I expected charm and catchiness, and I can pretty confidently say that I did not expect the amount of 70s and 80s style prog rock elements and influences as we got on this one, man. First off, as a massive fan of prog, this album scratches an itch I don't think I've ever felt the need to scratch, which is prog pop.
Yeah.
And my first listen through was pretty interesting. I kept having to like look at track names twice to make sure I was listening to like the same song as the one I started. Even though we got like quite a few of these tracks as singles, I still feel like every single one of them took on new life as a cohesive part of this record. Take Image, for example. I hadn't listened to it since it dropped in early July. So when that synth lead took over and the bass line just kept adding groove and then the synths died off and with the up pitch and then straight into Death and Romance just fucking floored me, John. I clicked play again as soon as this thing ended because it does not at all feel like 53 minutes. Felt like an hour and a half. It felt like a half-hour album, even with all the elements that like elongate the tracks, like the trailing synths at the end of them and the large vocal passages where the music just kind of takes a back seat. There are like multiple 3-track runs on this that could go for like the best 3-track runs in pop this year. And I think that's fucking wild. It's no longer a Brat Summer, John. It is an Imaginal Autumn. There were only a couple of things I didn't like about this album. A couple of melodies that just kind of drifted off into nowhere without finishing the progression or like without coming back, like on Fear Sex, which I still love the song. There's just this melody at like a minute in that like I kind of like expected it to come back like 3 minutes in and it doesn't. It's in the ethos. And there were like 3 moments where her voice bothered me. But overall, this is an extremely high 9 out of 10, man. Vampire in the Corner through Tunnel Vision is going to be my standout. All 3 of those songs.
Ooh, dude, all of those are fucking great. Vampire in the Corner, really, really good. I love that one too. Yeah, dude,
Yep.
2 for 2. If you're not counting mixtapes, easy. All right, new one from Illuminati Hotties called Power. What are your thoughts on this album?
Illuminati Hotties are back. Well, I actually think this is more of the work of the main composer, Sarah Tudzin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, Sarah, as she's the composer. I really enjoyed her last album, Let Me Do One More, and there isn't really much of a change in her musical direction on this one, aside from it being a teensy bit more chill, and I'm actually glad for that. It's like breezy indie pop with a fuzz, and even like sometimes a slight punk edge to it without all of the frenetics. I love this style of music so much because it's just a breeze to listen to, John. It's very summer and it just enables me to have a good time with whatever I'm doing as I'm listening to it. Can't Be Still really sets the album off on tone, and we don't really leave there, man. There are fun melodies, there's catchy hooks, there's fun lyrics, great choruses, good production value, and again, it's just so easy to listen to. I don't actually have much more to say about this album. There's nothing revolutionary, nor is there anything particularly memorable or forgettable. Indie pop isn't just quite as popular in the societal zeitgeist as it has been, or it was 10 years ago, but I sure do love a good and easy album like this one. Somewhere between a 6 and a 7 for me. Let's call it a 7, solid 7. Power or Falling in Love with Somebody Better. Those are either one of those are my standouts. What do you think about this one?
Our scores are similar, but I think you enjoyed it a little bit more than me. I don't know what it was about this album this week. I gave it the 3 listens I give out every album before taking notes. Just wasn't doing it for me. Like you said, it's not bad. It's just I'd still say I enjoyed it more than I didn't, but I wouldn't say it's a step up from her last album. There's more of what made that album work present on here, but it's just really not coming together in the same way for me. I think all the pieces are there, though. I Would Like, Still Love You, and The L, great songs. The main riff on Following in Love reminded me of like early Hello Goodbye. I do enjoy things about this album. They just don't come together in the same satisfying way that they did on the last album, but that could all change after this week. This is an album I could easily see growing on me with time. It almost feels like it's built for that. I'm just not loving it quite yet. I'm going to give it a 6 for now, though. My standout, oh man, it's either Falling in Love or I Would Like. Both are really good.
To be fair, man, this is sandwiched between Magdalena Bay and Nile, so
Yeah.
it's hard to, So maybe give it a week and go listen to this one like on its own, and maybe it'll be different.
You're right. You're right. You're right. Let's talk about that new Nile album. The Underworld
Can we
awaits
please?
us all. Hit me with your thoughts on this one, man.
John, it dawned on me as I started this album that I've been a fan of Nile for 20 fucking years. It's been kind of crazy. It's always kind of crazy to me when a band can put out consistently good music for so long. It's been over 30 years for them in this case. I think they dropped their first demo in 93 or 94. It's even crazier when you put band member changes into the mix. This is the case with Nile, as they've actually had at least 2 band member changes since 2023. And for this album to sound as tight and cohesive as it does for having 2 new dudes in the band this late in their career is a pretty large accomplishment, in my opinion. The album starts with a bang and just bangs all the way through. There is not a track on here that I skipped on this one. I love how Carl has written throughout Nile's tenure. It's just Egyptian dystopian themed fucking death metal. It is simple yet effective. His vocals on this one sound fucking great. We get some incredibly deep growls, even some tasteful pig squeals on this one. The bass tone throughout this record is just immaculate, man. Like I've always said, bass is so important to death metal, and the little grooves that Dan finds on Nakata 2 Enter the Golden Age are fucking sweet. Or the little funky bass line on Overlords of the Black Earth, just buzzing underneath all the madness, and the lyrics of wiping populations out with fangs and disease is just sublime.
Yep.
We get some longer tracks like the intro, Stele of Vultures, True Gods of the Desert, and the epic title track, The Underworld Awaits Us All, where they give the instrumentals a little bit more room to breathe, get a little doomy. And then we have a short little number in the Pentagrammathian of Nephron Ka, which is just fucking obliterated me on first listen. I love the choral moments on Overlords of the Black Earth. They just fit so well into the track, and then they get all slow and doomy. God, man, this thing just works on so many levels, on all of the levels I wanted it to. I'm a fan of most of their music for sure, but I think this is the best album they've put out in years, man. It's an easy 8 to 9, high 8, low 9 for me. Nakata 2 Enter the Golden Age, but really just throw a fucking dart at this thing, bro. You cannot go wrong.
Yeah, dude. I agree with all of that. They just, once again, the guys in Nile are not fucking around. They never have. They never will. It's brutal and overwhelming and exhausting in all the ways a metal album like this should be. They waste no fucking time. Like you said, that first track, Stele of Vultures, is insane. The first 30 seconds feel like you're just trying to outrun a roller coaster, while the next 6 minutes feel like getting run over by that roller coaster again and again. It's great, dude. The album does not let up from there either. Like you said, Chapter for Not Being Hung Upside Down is great as well, although I probably didn't need to hear him yell the word feces that many times. Either way,
are you sure?
Good. I'm pretty sure, but you could be right. Still a good song, though. To Strike with the Secret Fang is a 2-minute ripper that does not let up. It doesn't lighten up after that, but they do get a little more proggy in structure after the interlude. That title track near the end might be the magnum opus of the album, though. 8+ minutes of insanity, and it's awesome. The whole album is just great, dude. Easy 8 for me. My standout is Stele of Vultures. That opener just cannot be topped. That shit is great.
Yeah. What a way to open an album.
Seriously, dude. It almost like... It's such an overwhelming drum fill that I almost like had to run it back to even pick up the guitars in it, just because I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? It's really, really good, dude. Great metal album. I will agree. One of their best in some time as well.
Yeah, really good shit. Glad you liked it.
Yes, sir. One more album to talk about this week. It's the new one from Delving, All Paths Diverge. This one coming after the Nile one is kind of weird, but also kind of perfect. Like, it's a jarring transition, but it's a beautiful way to wind down listening to the new albums this week. His music just makes for such an interesting listen every time. Feels very Tycho adjacent, but like with more of an experimental indie edge to it. I love how you can hear the songs develop layer by layer in real time. It's passive music that's almost demanding you to listen to it actively and rewards you for doing so. You get Zodiac going from like a Grateful Dead jam session into pure ambience. You get the aesthetic. What is that? Aesthetic?
Aesthetic? I have no idea.
You pick some weird names, man. Anyways, that song goes from light noodling to full-on shredding. I love when a project, or in this case, individual songs, have that much diversity of sound within them while still maintaining some cohesion throughout. It's a tough balance to strike, and I think that he pulled it off here. Overall, this one's a 7 for me. My standout is, I think I'm going to go Sentinel. What about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
Wow.
Yeah.
Delving did it again, and most of my time listening to this instrumental masterpiece has been with my entire head on the floor with like nothing to say. Alas, I've talked myself into reviewing it, so here we go.
Yeah.
Music is and always has invoked strong emotions in human beings. This is done today primarily through like lyrical concepts and typical dopamine channels in pop music, right? Delving managed to invoke some serious emotions in me in this album without saying a word nor subscribing to any pop sensibilities. There are layers upon layers of drums with odd time signatures, synth leads and melodies, guitar riffs, and of course some immaculate bass lines. Every time each track turned a corner and progressed into something even wilder than the last corner, it had me wondering how we got here and how it made so much sense. Like you said, the aesthetic, for instance, yeah. You start that track, and by the end, we're hearing like soaring synth leads. The drums are going crazy, and you feel heightened. Yet in the beginning, we were all cozy with a nice little bass line and some pretty guitars. Wild, man. That was just one of the 7 tracks that make up this record. I'm like genuinely blown away here, John. Nothing makes sense until it does with this thing, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's progressive, instrumental, psychedelic synth rock, and apparently that's very much my thing. This sounds fucking incredible on vinyl, by the way, like for real incredible. It's a high 9, bro. It might even graduate into a 10 for me. I have no notes. There's nothing about this album I dislike. It's a perfect hour. There's no standouts. They all are the standout. It's a whole thing.
Dude, fuck yeah. I love that you love it that much. It is very, very good. I think just musically, it's probably not always within the realm of stuff I typically listen to, but it is great for what it is. I'll agree with you there.
I agree. It's very Tycho adjacent, though. I kept when you put on what is the song?
Omnipresence. That one was hit.
It's Omnipresence, dude. The chord progressions just kind of feel like you're gonna get like laid down like Tycho does. Yeah. Like, all right, calm down now, but then it doesn't. And it's really cool.
Yeah, dude.
This whole thing is cool, bro.
Yeah, it was a fun week of albums, man. We had a lot of good ones this week to talk about. All right, we got another big release week coming up. We got new albums scheduled to drop from A$AP Rocky, Doechii, Kalani, Money Long, Nails, Ty Segall, Tycho, who we were just talking about, and Zed this week. Tune in next week to see which of those we'll be covering, if not all of them. You can follow the link in the show notes to follow along with the playlist that the podcast is based on. We update it every Friday night with everything we'll be covering on next week's episode. You can also keep up with us on Instagram and Reddit. Just search Brandon's Face Pod. Give us a follow. We will see y'all next time. Peace.
Peace.